Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're gonna be talking a little bit about the different decks and which ones I think are very viable and which ones I would take to regionals with me. As you all know, there are two regionals happening this weekend, and it's the Rio de Janeiro regionals and the Birmingham regionals here in Europe in UK. And unfortunately, I will not be going to either of those. However, that still didn't stop me from thinking which deck it would be the best choice to take with me to the regionals. And I've concocted a list of 10 decks that I think are really good and really viable currently in this meta. And I'm gonna start off from number 10, which is the Raging Bolt EX. It's a deck that has been around for a very long time. The lists are very similar to each other. There's like 55 core cards and 5 cards that are varying from list to list. It is relatively linear and easy to play deck, and it's really good. It's super aggressive, it's really fast, and the best thing about it, it has a great matchup in the Regidrago and in so many other things. It's really good. However, it's really bad in a lot of things as well. So just because it has so many bad matchups, it landed on the 10th place, unfortunately. Still a very good deck, a very good choice, but I think there are some way better than this ones. And going on to number 9, we have the Archelon EX, another deck that is relatively linear, just like Raging Bolt, also very fast and very aggressive, just like Raging Bolt, except I think you can still have a lot more wiggle room for the deck list. And yeah, it hasn't been played a lot, it hasn't been explored a lot, because people only started to really play this one after the Champions League in Osaka. I mean, sure, it was played before, but really playing as much as now just because of the Champions League in Osaka in Japan a couple of weeks ago, I think. And yeah, it's a really interesting deck. It's got a lot of plays to improve. There are a lot of different lists, and I think with the right list, you can have so much better matchup spread than, for example, the Raging Bolt, and it has so much good qualities, and yeah, I just like it a lot. However, there are still some matchups that I cannot figure out. I cannot turn the deck list around for it to have a such a good matchup spread to be spread evenly across all of the archetypes. So that's why I'm giving it a number 9. On number 8, we have Dingo, another deck that has been played for quite a while now. It's really good. It gained a lot from the Energy Surge Pro Ace spec. It, it can hit for really high numbers really early on. It's really aggressive, one of the more aggressive evolution decks, just like the Archelon. It can basically one-hit knockout anything in the standard format. It's really good, it's really nice. However, I think once again it has so many bad matchups. If you don't play the Manaphy, or if you have Manaphy priced, you are so susceptible to plays such as Q-rimming and board wiping your entire board, and you can't do anything from there on out. You have so many things that can go wrong with this deck, and so many matchups where you have such an uphill battle that you just cannot pull through. So that's why it's number 8. I know there are a lot of Dingo lovers who will say, yeah, this deck should be up higher, but I think number 8 is where I would put it, in my personal opinion, if I had to take a deck to regionals. On number 7, we have another very interesting archetype, and that is the Terapagos. It's the poison deck with a lot of aggression, with a lot of options on how to play it. You can even toss in some of the Noctowls and make this deck really insane. I think this deck is kind of being slept on for as of now for a moment, but I think it has a lot of potential, and it has a pretty solid matchup spread. There are not many bad matchups for this deck. So yeah, that's why. However, the sequencing on this deck can be something that basically kills your own hand, and yeah, if you miss sequence in this deck, you're not gonna have a very good time. So you kind of need a lot of practice with it for it to be really, really good. But that's why it's landed on the number 7. Number 6, in my opinion, would be the Gardevoir EX. The deck has all of the matchups are slightly unfavored, but none of the matchups are actually an auto loss. Everything is beatable, everything can be, you can win against everything, and you can lose against everything just as easily. Once again, if you don't play the mana fee, you can get cured out, so that's why it's sitting so low, but I think Gardevoir has a lot of potential, especially once Prismatic Evolution comes out and becomes legal. Because of the Badoos, the meta is gonna slow down a lot, and I think when the meta is a bit slower, that's when it is Gardevoir's time to shine, so I'm setting it here for a moment, but I think in a 2 or 3 weeks, I think it's gonna be way higher, like on number 1 or 2, maybe even, but we'll see in a couple of weeks. Number 5 is another very interesting archetype, and that is the Dragapult Iron Thorns. It kinda sounds like a meme deck. It is so weird but so fun to play, and because of the quad Iron Thorns in the deck and because of the Dragapult, a lot of matchups that were worse before become really better at this point, so it has a brilliant matchup spread. It has some not so great. It might be awkward because of the damage outputs at moments. However, it is a very good deck. I've been testing it a lot lately and I like it so much. However, I still think there are some better options for those regionals coming up this weekend, so that's why it's sitting on number 5. Number 4 is a deck that's been around for a very, very long time and will not be with us for much longer, and that is the Lugia Vistar. The Lugia Vistar is a relatively simple deck to pick up, relatively simple deck to master, and it is a very powerful deck, and it's once again a deck that is being slept upon because it's one of the decks that has a brilliant Snorlax stall matchup, one of the few decks that actually has that, and it has a very evenly spread matchup spread is very evenly across the entire meta. You have some auto wins such as the Snorlax stall, you have an auto lose with Miraidon, but Miraidon is really not being played as much, so your biggest threat is not there anymore, so I think it's a very, very solid choice, so that's why I'm giving it a number 4. And now, for the top 3, on the 3rd place, we got the Charizard EX. Charizard EX is a deck that is super powerful, super good, super consistent, and relatively easy to pick up. It's really good, it's really strong, it has a lot of good matchups, it had some not so good or some very awkward matchups as well, but it's a very, 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 very solid deck, and for sure, always when I'm building my decks for the regionals, I'm either considering Charizard or considering playing against Charizard, because it's very popular and it's very strong, and it can be a very difficult matchup for so many things, and if you take Charizard, you're gonna be the difficult matchup for so many things. So that's one of the decks that for sure deserves the number 3, the top 3 spot. On the number 2, we have Snorlax stall. Now that is a very unpopular opinion from my end, me being not so keen on control and such archetypes, and Snorlax being my second choice for the regionals if I would have gone to them. But why did I choose Snorlax stall to be in the second place? because Lugia is really not as played anymore, and apart from Lugia, there are not a lot of decks that actually have a good matchup into you. I mean, out of all of those that I've listed before, the best one, except for Lugia of course, the best matchup has the Archelon EX, and even that is below 40% win rate into Snorlax. So it has a very good chances. It is a very, very, very difficult deck, and it takes a lot of time to master it, and you really need to know what every deck in the meta is doing in order to play such archetypes like control and stall. You really need to have a lot of things on your mind every single game. Every single game is a battle, but I think if you master the deck, it is a brilliant choice, one of the best you can possibly imagine taking with you. However, there is another deck that is kind of good in control, I mean stall, my bad, kind of good in stall if played correctly, and it has great matchups into everything except the 9th and 10th deck, and that is of course the first place, our winner, the Rio Vistar. Like I always say, it is currently the best deck in format. It's super strong, it has such insane versatility, it has such a good matchup spread. There are not a lot of decks that can really stall you out or really break your play in any way, shape or form, except the really turbo aggressive decks that I've put on like the end of the list. However, it is a very good, very strong choice, and I think for if I would have been going to any other regionals in the Surging Sparks format, that would have been my go-to, just because it is super strong, super consistent, it's really good, and if it does break, it does one game maybe in a best out of 3, so if you scoop quickly enough, you still have 2 games where you can dominate easily. So that's why, for sure, my number 1 has to be the Rio Vistar. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, you guys. If you have any comments on my top 10, please let me know in the comments down below, and catch you next time.